Morning, everyone. This is the March meeting of the Washington Medical Commission. I'd like to start off with Amelia providing us with her housekeeping rules.
So good morning and thank you for joining us for our business meeting today. This meeting is being recorded. The documents which will be discussed here today are available on the event calendar on our website, which is wmc.wa.gov. They are also available in the handout section of the webinar. I am Amelia Boyd and I'm the program manager for the Medical Commission. Jimmy Bush and I are the organizers for this meeting. Panelists, please be sure to mute yourself if you are not speaking. Attendees, you are automatically muted. And please note that anything posted to the chat or questions section is considered public record. We will take public comment at this meeting. Once we get to that item, the chair, Mr. Malden, will read a script and will then ask for public comment. If you would like to comment at that time, please use the raise your hand feature or add your comments to the question section. Our time for public comment is limited and each speaker is likely to only have about 2 minutes to speak. And with that, I will hand it over to Mr. Malden for his chair report.
Thank you, Amelia. I'd like to start off talking a little bit about panels A and B. Some of you may have noticed, or maybe you even are aware of the fact that we've got a little bit of an imbalance, a gender imbalance in our two panels, with panel B having 8 males and 2 females, panel A having 7 males and 3 females. So I would like to really thank both Jim Anderson and Arlene Duro for their willingness to make a panel switch to help in our balancing act. And I can't thank you enough for volunteering. It's really kind of a very start in a short-term fix. But thank you very much for volunteering to switch panels to help us with this imbalance. As all of you know, we have 7 expiring commissioner terms in June, and so we will be backfilling and making further adjustments to both panels A and B as new commissioners are added. With that, I would like to welcome Michael Bailey, who is our newest commissioner, recently appointed by the governor's office. And Mr. Bailey, I assume you are online at this point in time. I can't see everyone, so I'm going to ask for you to give us a little bit of background about yourself, and welcome.
You might be having some technical issues.
Hey, this is Michael Bailey. I think I'm on the other side. So I'm trying to get to that side.
I think we can't hear you very well.
Can you hear me any better now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. My name is Michael Bailey, and have the pleasure of joining the commission moving forward. A little bit about myself: currently working as a deputy director for the Seattle Human Services Department. My portfolio includes aging and disability services for King County, but also the city's homelessness investments. And it's a very interesting time and an exciting time as we transition a lot of that work to the regional homelessness authority and taking a regional approach to tackling and eliminating homelessness. I am relatively new to the state of Washington. Originally came here to serve as a legislative director for the Department of Revenue. Prior to that, worked with the state of Georgia as their deputy director for legislative affairs and outreach within their state human services department. Prior to that, spent several years with the state of South Carolina. A lot of that time was spent both in healthcare administration, environmental justice. Had a great opportunity to serve on the board of trustees for a rural hospital and really just help promote a regional approach, but also to protect the citizens as we merge with a larger hospital entity. As it relates to licensing, had the opportunity to support Governor Nikki Haley on the state licensing board. In this particular capacity, my responsibility was tied to professional counselors, so marriage, family, counselors of that nature. And then what was unique about that opportunity is the fact that we were creating a credential for alcohol and substance abuse counselors. So opening up the regs, opening up the statutes, and just ensuring that we had the ability to protect the citizens of South Carolina as we brought on this new entity. So very excited to join the folks here, hoping that I can contribute in a meaningful way. And I look forward to benefiting the patients and members of Washington as we move forward.
Thank you, Michael. Sounds like you are well experienced and will take off running in your role as a new commissioner on the commission. Speaking of panel, Mr. Bailey will be joining panel B for now. As I mentioned, we may have further adjustments as new commissioners are appointed. I have one last item to mention, and I would like to recognize Jimmy Bush. She has been accepted by the FSMB for an award of merit, which will be awarded during the April FSMB meeting. I'm not sure if Micah is on or not. If you'd like to make some comments, Micah, about the reason behind Jimmy's nomination and acceptance of the award of merit.
Sure. So Jimmy has her hand involved in quite a few things at the commission, as I'm sure you all are aware. She oversees the quality and engagement unit. She heads up our CME program and our webinar program, and she's also in charge of the newsletter. She's in charge of our annual educational conference. And she seems to be a bit of a catch-all when it comes to public-facing items, engagement, and that sort of thing. And so we basically wrote up the nomination on just generally what she's doing, and they reviewed that at FSMB and thought it was a worthy nomination to give her the award of merit. So that will happen in late April in New Orleans, and we'll try and fit that award nomination acceptance in between a lot of very good food.
Thank you, Micah. And thank you, Jimmy. I know that I couldn't do what I'm doing as chair of the commission without all the help you provided me. So an award well deserved.
Thank you.
Want to make an acceptance speech? You can save that for the FSMB. Moving on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda has two items as usual: approval of the January 14th business meeting minutes and approval of today's business meeting agenda. With that, I will entertain a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Old business committee work group reports. There are written reports on page 13. Are there any additional comments about the work group reports or from any work group chair or a member?
I would like to say a little something about the commission educational work group, and that was put together to come up with ideas for your lunch and learn sessions. And when COVID hit us, that kind of went underground, kind of died. And we've been sort of pitch hitting with things that we thought would be interesting for the commission to learn during these lunch and learn sessions. Mike Farrell did a great presentation yesterday about the differences between the medical boards across the nation. And he just, that's the tip of the iceberg. I meet with these folks, at least annually, and we are completely different than most other boards and commissions. But the point I'm trying to make is I have asked the staff to put together a list of things and information that they believe would be a good lunch and learn session for the commission on the Thursday days. And so I am putting together that list, and it talks about hearing etiquette, you know, what to do at an administrative hearing and who all the players are. It talks about what's the difference between an SOA and an SOC, you know, a STID versus a statement of charges, and why do we use those, and what's the point, and all of that information. I'm going to invite FSMB to come in a couple of times a year and talk about issues of a bigger nature. For example, right now, a lot of state legislatures are passing laws that impact the regulatory authority of their medical boards, and they are keeping track of all of that. They are testifying at some of those state levels, and I think that might be interesting to you. Also, FSMB provides a lot of services that you probably have no idea about, and that might be helpful for us to participate in as well. So although you haven't heard anything about the Commission Education Work Group, and there is no chair at this time, I am working behind the scenes to put this together. If you as a commissioner have anything that is of interest to you and you think it might be of interest to other folks to learn more about, please drop me an email and I will add it to our list. So I'm working behind the scenes to make sure that you have interesting lunch and learns for the next couple of years. Thanks.
Thank you, Melanie. I think that's a great idea, and I think it'll be welcome information for everyone. You know, Mike's presentation yesterday was really informative to give you an idea of how other boards and commissions work. I know the first time I went to an FSMB meeting, talked to a number of folks around the country, and I was just really surprised how every board and commission works a little differently. And of course, the Washington Medical Commission is by far the best, obviously, but it's really interesting how it all comes together. So thank you for that. Are there other committee work group reports? Okay.
Chair Malden.
Yes.
So I would just pipe in and say that there are a couple of work groups on that list that have not been active, and I would recommend that exec review those and consider maybe disbanding a couple. One in particular is the osteopathic manipulative therapy work group. That came up just for history about 2 to 3 years ago because there was a change in L&I's reimbursement criteria for people who could do that. And so the sports medicine folks felt like they might be excluded because they weren't considered osteopaths. And so there was some debate on that. However, we ran into quite a bit of stakeholder opposition, particularly from the chiropractors. And so if we were not going to consider moving that forward, you know, that's an example of something that probably could come off the committees and work groups list.
I agree, Micah. At the last meeting, I mentioned the same thing about some of these work groups are probably old and ready to be removed, and I didn't follow that up with Melanie or the executive committee, so we will do that during the next month.
My apologies, I didn't mean to call you out.
Well, thank you very much for that, Micah. I need to be called out more often. Okay, without any additional comment, let's move on to the nominating committee, and I will call on Dr. Alden Roberts, chair of the nominating committee.
Morning, everybody. The nominating committee met yesterday. We are putting forward a chair recommendation, which is Dr. Jimmy Chung. Recommendation for first vice chair will be Dr. Karen Domino. We're going to hold on the second vice chair for right now, and we'll bring that up at the next meeting to make a recommendation for second vice chair. Dr. Claire Trescott has decided that there are other issues that would make it not ideal for her to move forward as the chair of the committee, and so she has stepped down from that rotation. So our recommendations will be for chair Dr. Jimmy Chung, And for first vice chair, Dr. Karen Domino. Second vice chair will be brought up next meeting.
Yeah, I should mention, we do have some folks under consideration, and we were waiting to hear back from some of those folks. And as you know, the process is that nominations are made at this meeting. The next meeting, there's an opportunity to ask other commissioners if they want to nominate others, and then the vote is the vote for the new leadership takes place during the May meeting. So that's the process for the next leadership. Move on to rulemaking activities. Amelia, do you have, whoops, sorry, Jim Anderson. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Sorry. Is there a better way? Is there like a hand raising thing on this platform or something? I don't know if
Not
there is.
for panelists, no.
Okay, great.
You just have to kind of speak up.
Help. Okay, real
Just
good.
speak up.
Well, there
so-
is, Jim. You just raised your hand, so.
Exactly. So, as far as like in the future, as far as leadership on the commission, I do hope. I mean, as I approach the end of my 8 years on the commission, that which seems like about 10 minutes, but that there will be an effort to try to find a way to integrate the PA members into the leadership track. I don't think there's been any problem with not doing that, but I know other commissions have, where they have hybrid commissions like we are, have PAs in leadership, and I hope that this can be something that commission can put on their radar, as looking for ways to integrate PA commission members into leadership tracks. And besides that, I am very pleased with all the leaders that have been here in my time here, and I couldn't be happier with the leadership that we've had. So thank you.
Jim, I appreciate that, and we certainly would like to take that into consideration. We do include everyone when we're considering who we are recommending. John, being the chairman, is also a public member, so there is absolutely no intention of excluding anyone when we consider this. I appreciate your comments. I think they're very valid, because thinking back in my 8 years, there hasn't been a PA on the executive committee, but it's not intentional, and we will make an intentional effort to try and include it.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
Other comments about the nominating process and leadership?
Mr. Mullen, I just have a question. I may have missed it, but did you announce who the committee is?
So the committee is, do you want me to do that, John? Or you can do it?
I want you to do that, yes.
Okay. So we had a little bit of an interesting situation this time, because one of the members of the nominating committee is someone that we nominated, namely Karen. So Christine Blake is one of the members of the nominating committee. John is not a candidate for next year for anything. He is the first vice and the immediate past chair, so he will be on the executive committee, but he's not a candidate for any office. So I asked him if he would be on the committee, and he was the other member of the committee. So it's myself, John Malden, and Christine Blake.
Thank you.
Are there other questions about the process, the leadership process? Okay, we will move on to rulemaking activities, and I'll ask Amelia to comment.
Thank you. So we are bringing forward some new draft language for a rule that you have already approved to move to the CR 102 process, which is the second part of the rulemaking process. While I was drafting the 102, I realized that, well, it was pointed out to me that we have an interpretive statement that the policy committee approved yesterday and will be before you during the policy committee report. And we already have an another interpretive statement that you approved, I believe, at the November meeting that are part of this rulemaking for the international medical graduates. So what has happened is that I have integrated the language from those two interpretive statements into the draft rule language. So what I'm bringing forward today is the revised draft language, which you can see here. It's pretty short still, but we're just adding in those pieces from the two interpretive statements. So my ask here today is to basically reapprove the CR 102 with this draft language.
With that, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Thank you, Christine. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion adopted.
Thank you. And then the next item, I will ask Mr. Farrell to speak on that one.
Good morning, everybody. You have a policy on, or a guideline rather, on medical records, and it covers a lot of different topics, including physician's obligation to keep medical records and to keep them for a certain period of time. We get a lot of calls on this, and people ask, well, what is the legal requirement for a doctor to keep medical records, and how long must they keep them? And I have to tell them there is no legal requirement, but it's a recommendation by the commission to provide them with this guideline. Usually they already have it, and that's why they're calling. This issue about a physician's obligation to even keep medical records, have them available to the commission is so.
You blanked out on us.
Pardon?
Oh, I'm sorry, you broke up. We couldn't hear you.
Okay, how about now?
How about now is good.
Okay, let me know if I break up again, I'll take this off. I want to ask you to begin the rulemaking process to make it crystal clear that a physician in the state of Washington has an obligation to keep medical records, to keep them for a certain amount of time, and to produce them to the commission upon request. That sounds real simple and obvious, but there are a couple of physicians right now who are saying to you, I don't have access to the records of the patients I treated. And I don't think that physicians should avoid your scrutiny by claiming that a third party has these records. So I think if we have a rule, then we can enforce that. Thank you.
Diana?
I have a question, Mike. Two questions. Number one, do other states have a rule or a law about medical records? Because I thought that they did, but maybe I'm wrong. And then the other thing is, when I read through our statement, given our current spate of cases around telehealth and the telehealth companies not keeping records and making them accessible, and us saying, well, telehealth, it needs to be held to the same standard of care as in-person healthcare. I feel like we need to call that out and make it specifically be really clear about that in whatever rule we come up with.
Yeah, I think that's going to be central, Dr. Curry, that, I mean, there's a lot of issues to address, and which issues you want to address is up to you. But I would strongly recommend that a physician, even if they work with a third party, that they have an obligation to maintain those medical records, provide them to the patient and to the commission, regardless of what their contract says.
Dr. Trescott?
Yeah, the one issue I'm wondering about with this, especially with telehealth, is that we don't have jurisdiction over the actual companies. We have some sway over the physicians. And when they're electronically maintained, that physician doesn't really have power over that company. So I'm not sure how we enforce this or require it, or what a physician would do to maintain their own records in a separate telehealth situation. It's as we become more virtual, it is becoming more difficult for us to have jurisdiction, I would believe.
Right,
over
but Claire,
these
I would argue that you shouldn't work for a company that doesn't have some sort of clear policy about how they're going to handle medical records for you going forward. I mean, I think that is a responsibility that if the telehealth companies can get away with it, they will. But if we make physicians responsible, hopefully some pressure from the physicians will provide some incentive for the companies to be responsible about this, or physicians won't work for them, or at least not in Washington. I don't know. I'm very frustrated by this whole thing, and I feel strongly, as you can tell. So, however,
Well,
we can
again,
get to it.
I think I agree with you that I think we're just moving into an era where we as a group have less control over what happens with our medical records. And this, if we want to make physicians responsible for really keeping records in that setting, there's a lot of work involved, and there's an influencing another whole part of our industry, which is, I just need to point that out, that I don't think we can force them to do that.
What
And
about
a
other
physician
states?
coming right out of training won't know, okay, I have to negotiate that you're going to keep the records and keep them accessible to me, unless there's some way we formally put that into effect or into law.
Dr. Yu?
Yeah, I have a question. When a patient get a telehealth consultation, does the company provide medical records to both patient and the physician or the provider? So that how the when we go to local doctor's office, they give you after a summary of after visit. What happened to the telehealth consultation? Do someone provide records? It's through the doctor or through the company?
So,
Diana?
Dr. Yu, the federal law for open notes went into effect last April, so about a year ago. So technically, everybody's supposed to have access through electronic patient portals, et cetera, to their own notes. But the issue comes up with if it's a telehealth company that's created the platform that the physician is seeing the patient on, that platform may or may not continue to be in existence. So if the company goes out of business, the platform could disappear, which means the entire database disappears. And you're right, Claire, that is a huge issue, and I think we can't possibly be the only state that's dealing with it. I feel like, I don't think that was in the ACA whole thing, but I feel like that's the next evolution in the world of medicine for telehealth, to figure out how to continue to keep these records in existence, even when private companies kind of go out of business, so to speak. Because like if a private practice goes out of business, people stick the records in, steel filing cabinets somewhere, for 7 years or whatever it is.
Right.
So I don't know. That's why I was wondering what other states are doing, if they are.
Diana, it's Chris, if the provider is providing that service, that telemedicine service at a hospital, then that hospital would have those records still because they would be documenting in there. So that provider could reach back to that facility and say, I am being questioned about this case and I need those medical records. So there is that capability.
Right.
Through peer review at our facility, if a provider was telemedicine, we have the records and we have the concern. So they should be able to reach back out to them and say, I was here during this time and I need a copy of that record.
Right. So this
or
isn't an
so-and-so
issue.
needs a copy of the record. Yeah.
Right. It's not an issue, Christine, for big organizations. Anyone who's on Epic, for example, the vast majority of these organizations, it's no problem. It's all of the Teledoc, TeleMD. It's all these little telehealth platforms that come up with their own platform for medical record keeping. Once that, it's not the Epic based, Providence, Peace Health, whatever, Kaiser.
I agree. And those other clinics and so forth should be able to have records. And it is, I guess, when that company, say, goes out of business, where do those records go is the big question that I guess we need to find out. Looks like Micah has a...
Micah, you're waving your hand.
Sure. Just to on the rule, I would not recommend calling out telemedicine companies specifically. If the standard of care is the same, then you write a single rule that addresses it all. The second thing I would say is we have history with non-telemedicine companies closing up shop and not being able to access the records, both on the license application side, where it was with a very large institution and the applicant could not get the records we were requesting. And then in our more notable recent history, Seattle Pain Center closed down and the records went to not a clinician, not a healthcare organization, but to a private company in San Jose. And one of the regulators had to purchase the database from them in order to access the records. So a lot of odd things can come through there. And so that's why I would recommend keeping it simple. And in the effort of keeping it simple, I would suggest that you define telemedicine in a couple of ways. One, you've got what you were talking about with the Providence, the Kaisers, the major groups, multi-care, they've got the virtual care option, but it's all tied to a major system. What we're talking about is direct to consumer telemedicine. And so, you named off a couple, American Well, Teladoc, on numerous others. And so they do give out a after visit summary typically. And the standard is usually you have to forward the either the after visit summary or whatever records you have to a PCP if it's indicated by the patient that they have one. That's the catch. So this rule, while I respect that it's probably going to address some things, is going to be very difficult and very nuanced. And I would caution that writing something broad like this for something that has so much variability is going to catch up some folks who you didn't want. And so just I would caution on how we go about this.
Thank you. Are there other comments? Again, I can't see everyone, so speak up if you have something to say. I know there's another long-standing issue has been specialty care and with consultations. And a lot of specialists are saying, well, whatever I did, I sent to the individual requesting the consultation, and that's part of their record, so I don't keep that record. And I know that's come up in the past when consultants' records have been requested and they said, I just don't have any. So another issue to think about. So let me ask, the recommendation is that we leave the medical record guideline in place, intact as written. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
I would agree with that. So I'll entertain a motion to adopt the guideline.
So moved.
Oh,
sorry.
Mike?
The ask here is that we initiate rulemaking on this subject. The guideline's already approved.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All right, so I'll accept a motion to initiate rulemaking on the guideline.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Let's move on to lists and labels. That's hard for me to say without lisping. Looks like we have 4 requests, and I'll call on Heather to make comments, as that's the historical way we've been doing it.
Okay, so just quick background on this for the new people. Lists and labels, it's a old-fashioned, we no longer send labels anymore, we just send a list, but it's kind of a holdover. So under Washington's public records law, the addresses and contact information of healthcare providers is exempt from public disclosure. The exception is if it is a professional association or educational organization, they can get the list of providers in Washington. And so usually every meeting you have a few of these where someone is requesting a list of your providers, and you look at their application and decide if they are a professional association or an educational association. If they are, you vote and they get the labels. If not, you can deny their request, and they are entitled to an adjudicated proceeding if they want to contest it. So the first of these is Agility COHE-SPC. They are applying saying they're an educational organization. To me, it's unclear what sort of education they provide. They've looked like Amelia tried to get some clarification, but really didn't get a whole lot of information. It looks like they're sending out a survey based on a contract that they are trying to get. So I did not think they met the educational organization definition, so would recommend deny at this time.
Dr. Roberts?
I agree. I couldn't find that this was an educational organization when I ran through this, and I would make a motion that we deny this one.
I agree. I'd second that.
Further discussion? Claire?
I just have a question for what COHE stands for.
I think it said Center of Occupational Health and Education.
That's what I was wondering, because there is a COHE component of kind of, it has oversight over occupational medicine, and there's it actually has had a role in the past. Back in my previous life, I know that COHE involvement in OCMED was important. So it was, and it seemed to me it was it wasn't for profit. It was much more related to oversight of occupational medicine. I may be wrong, but that's what COHE has stood for in the past. Does anyone have a bad idea about COHE?
I think the thing I would point out, which is on your screen, is they appear to be requesting it in advance of doing an RFP with LNI. And to me, that falls under the personal enrichment or professional enrichment piece. I think it would make more sense, and as they say in their email, to wait until they are the apparent successful bidder for the RFP from LNI, then they're under contract with the state agency, and they would have a more legitimate reason to get this.
The other thing is that it's a very poorly written request, and I think if we want, we can request more information. But I agree with Micah. As you read through this, it looks like they're doing this for personal gain. It does not look like they're doing it for educational purposes. And as physicians, we sort of get enough stuff to where one more thing is really annoying. So unless they have a valid reason, I would recommend against it.
Great, I think that helps. And also the idea that maybe we wait to see if they get an RFP and what it says.
We have a motion.
I just wanted to speak up for COHE. It's had a good motivations in the past and not been necessarily for big profit.
We have a motion and a second to deny the request. Additional comments, questions? All in favor say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next.
Yeah, the next requester is the Oregon chapter of the American College of Cardiology, their education foundation, and they are seeking the list to send out mailers and emails for CME. And so I would recommend approval.
I move that we approve it.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any additional comment? Hearing none. All in favor of accepting the request signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next.
Yep, the next is Pacific Lutheran University, also asking so that they can send out CE opportunities. It appears they meet the educational organization definition. I'd recommend approval.
So moved.
Got a second?
Second.
Comments, questions? All in favor of approving the request signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. One more.
The last one is the University of Washington School of Nursing, and I also believe they meet the educational organization definition and recommend approval.
So moved.
Do a second.
Second.
Thank you, Diana. Christine, additional comment? All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The request is approved. We'll move on to the public comment portion of the business meeting, and I will read the public comment script. We will now begin the portion of the business meeting to take public comment. The purpose is to allow members of the public to directly address the commission on issues of public concern. Please refrain from providing comments on pending or open investigations or disciplinary cases. We will not be answering questions or responding. Staff will be available after the meeting to answer your questions. Please understand that although the time period for comment during the business meeting is limited, the public can attend and provide comment at commission committee meetings. The public can also contact staff during the normal business hours. We welcome written comments as well. Each commenter will have 2 minutes to speak. When you comment, please state your name and who you represent. Would anyone like to comment at this time?
We do have one hand raised.
You?
Jody, if you'd like to go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jody Rook. I'm a physician assistant. I just wanted to take a moment to thank Mr. Jim Anderson and Alan Roberts for making an effort to include PAs as a part of the board. That's all. Thank you.
Are there other hands raised, Amelia?
No, there are no other hands raised.
Thank you. This concludes the public comment portion of the meeting. We'll move on to the policy committee report. Dr. Domino.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Our first policy is one we rolled into a rule making, but it's proposed interpretive statement establishing approval criteria for defining appropriate medical practices for IMG nomination, and that's on page 42 to 43. There were a couple of minor changes in this, and we voted to approve it as is in your packet. Are there any comments about this? I can't see everyone, so please yell out. I have a very small computer, so I only see half of you. If not, do we need other than our recommendation for approval, John, do we need a second or can we just vote on it?
I don't think we need a second, but no.
Yeah, okay, great. That's
so we can vote.
So, all in favor, say aye or raise your hand of approving this.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to approving this? Okay, great. The second one is on page 44 to 46, and this was the proposed policy, discrimination in healthcare. And this one we had previously considered, and a work group was formed in order to improve the draft, and the policy committee thought it was excellent. We made a few minor changes which are listed here on this. Mahi, do you have anything you want to say about this, or should we just go through? They're basically changes of, I would say, just English, trying to make some of the terms consistent, such as if you see there under key terms, bias begins with a capital T. However, a few paragraphs down, explicit bias didn't have a capital. And so they were really kind of grammatical changes, but we felt that the document was outstanding. Anyone have any comments about it who were on the work group, or any other comments from commission members? Again, I can't see you, Dr. Yu.
Yeah, I really like putting the key terms at the upfront. So that's very nice.
Thank you. Dr. Curry, I saw.
I just wanted to thank Mahi for all the work. She listened to all of our input simultaneously and sort of absorbed it and helped get it all into shape. So appreciate all your work, Mahi. Thanks.
Anyone else have comments? I can't see again everyone, so please yell out.
Yes, this is Mahi. Thank you so much for everyone for putting so much work into this. So this discrimination policy in healthcare provides a framework for commission's actions when we receive complaints of discrimination. So so this policy provides a guideline for commission action in those situations. So and we also recognize most actions are implicit in nature, and they can be remediated with education, but sometimes the incident is explicit and severe enough to warrant sanctions on practice. So that's what this policy is about. Again, thank you so much.
Great, thank you again to the work group. Great job. Any other comments about this, or ready to? So we recommended from the policy committee that we accept it with these minor changes. We thought it was an outstanding document. So we'd like to take a vote. Anyone all in favor of accepting this document, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, so we accepted that. All right, our next item is proposed guideline termination of the practitioner-patient relationship. That's on page 47 to 48. This one we've also seen before, and it went back to a work group again to work on it and improve the document. And the policy committee felt that the changes that were made, which you see below and were in your packet that you had received, did substantially improve this document, and we voted to approve it. Is there any discussion of this document? Any of the changes that were made? And again, I can't see everyone, so if you do have a comment, please yell out.
Just ask if you are there other changes that if we scrolled up, or is it just what we see?
It's down a little bit lower on mine. You see page 1. You can see those changes, and also on page 2 at the top. It's in the top half of page 2. I believe all these were in your packet. It's hard to read on a screen, depending on the size of your screen. Any other? I think you can scroll down a little bit more. There are just a few more in purple at the bottom. It's basically kind of clarifying items and making some of the language a bit clearer. Any comments about this? No. We recommend.
I have one quick comment.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just want to say in paragraph 2, where it says you have to be capable of notifying the sender, like whoever, that the patient did not view something in the portal. It's going to be a challenge for some organizations who don't have that set up in their EMR, but I think it's a good thing to have.
Does anyone else have any comments about that? All right, well, we recommended approval and would like to take a vote for approving this document. All in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, well, this one's approved as well. And then the final document is a policy called self-treatment or treatment of immediate family members. That's on page 49 to 50. And that one we had also seen before. I think the change on the first page is minor. There is a paragraph that was inserted, which you can see here. It says, except under limited circumstances described above, practitioners should not access the medical records of themselves or family members. Practitioners can always access records through the appropriate use of a patient portal. So I think this inclusion and when rewriting in this paragraph really made the 2 points clearer. Is number one, don't go on your electronic record to access your own medical records or those of your family members, and instead, if you can access these if it's appropriate use through the patient portal and they agree to having you access it. And we voted to approve it with this change. Are there any discussion about this? Thanks again to members, commission members who put in this language. I think it made it much clearer.
I just have one comment, Karen. We talked yesterday about how often this comes up in complaints, and that physicians, providers in general, don't always remember that they should not do this, shouldn't be treating families, shouldn't be treating their next door neighbors, prescribing, looking at records and so forth. And one of the things we talked about is how do we get this message out in a general sense as a reminder to licensees. And so if anybody has ideas about how to do that, we would welcome those ideas for some sort of distribution of information to providers.
Yeah, thanks, John. Dissemination is really difficult, and so great ideas. There was a number of ideas that came up yesterday, including things such as tying it to your registration for your license to practice medicine. But there are challenges involved with that. Certainly, we all get tons of emails. The electronic version of the newsletter that we get quarterly is not read as much as the one that was hard, copy. However, that distributing hard copy is also often not read and also extremely expensive. So, Dr. Yu.
I'm wondering if the facilities or clinic system, they would have some type of policy to guard this type of situation so that we can work with them and try to implement some policy internally to help them on this, if an issue come up.
Yeah, well, Christine, you talked about this yesterday. Can you just say something about what you do in your institution?
Sure, I did. And because of my position here, I'm able to take the relevant policies and once approved and move them into a system-wide knowledge for all of the facilities in Peace Health. So I do have that capability, and I point out the important parts that would impact a provider. So, and also PAs, when we changed the ruling on PAs being allowed to administer anesthesia and then also be trained to increase that, I moved that to our credentials committee. our PA group. So there's awareness, and we could shift what we do at our facility with privilege forms and so forth. So because I have the ability to do that, because I am a commissioner, it made me think about what other facilities do as well to bring that forward. So
Yeah.
I don't know if there'd be a way to do that, you know, in a more broad concept.
Yeah, like virtually every large organization has a policy regarding accessing medical records. And accessing medical records inappropriately will get you fired from most institutions.
Right.
It's not so true if you're in a small practice. It's not so true. Well, and some institutions won't fire you for anything. And so there are reasons why we need to be able to step in. It should be handled on a institutional level for probably the majority of physicians, but there are situations in which it isn't handled there. And if it is handled there, we may or may not, depending on how egregious the issue is, because sometimes this is awful. And depending on how egregious the issue is, we may opt to take an action also in addition to what's done at the institution. So
yeah.
to your point, we don't have a great way to disseminate policies that we make. On the other hand, most institutions do have very strong mechanisms to guard medical record security.
Okay. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We've actually already had some instances where we had to take action, Dr. Yu, on folks that have accessed their own or family medical records. So there is that strong policy in facilities.
Claire, you had your hand up, and Diana,
Yeah.
I know too.
This has made me think of is us approving policies and being very careful with wording here in this meeting every 6 weeks doesn't get out to the general population of physicians who should be seeing it and reading it or hearing about it. I mean, in big organizations, they have compliance departments that also check up on these things. However, we really need to think about how do we communicate the ideas that come out of this commission that actually regulate physician behavior and PA behavior. And how are we telling people about these things? And we're not generally communicating. And even a short statement in our newsletter about things that have been approved or points that have been made in this meeting would be helpful.
Thank you. Diana, you had your hand up earlier, I saw.
Oh, I was going to say exactly what Dr. Roberts said, but yeah, I think that educating our licensees, the sort of 35–40% that are not employed by big institutions, that's our target audience, since all of the employed physicians for the large organizations have this, you know, definitely have this kind of understanding. But, you know, that's still a sizable chunk of our licensees who are not employed, who need to know this.
And it isn't just this, it's all of the policies that we put through.
Yeah.
So
maybe that's our education conference for October, one of the themes, how to stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
One of the things mentioned yesterday was, you know, maybe partnering with WISMA as well as reaching a wider audience of providers. So that was a good idea, and sounds like probably the hospitals have policies in place, but WISHA obviously is the other partner.
Yeah, so thanks for the discussion. If anyone has other suggestions, please let Mr. Malden or me know about that. So I don't believe we did we vote for this? Sorry.
We did not.
We what?
No, we didn't.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Still talking.
Yeah, okay. Any other comments or suggestions about this? Again, I can't see everyone. So anyway, we voted to accept it with the revisions that you see there from Policy Committee. I'd like to take a vote. All in favor of accepting this policy, please raise your hand or say aye. And
aye.
Anyone opposed to this? Okay, this is approved as well. And that is the last, the end of the policy committee report.
Thank you, Dr. Domino. We'll move on to member reports. Does anyone have a communication they would like to offer? Dr. Yu?
Yeah, last year, Rex, my husband Rex and I were nominated for a patient safety award. It's a national award for Robert Ware Patient Safety Leadership Awareness Award. So after their selections, it is from by the Jacksonville University in Florida, and after they review all the nominations, and they reward Rex and I for 2022 in a volunteer category. So we are very humbled and honored. And this award is in honor of Dr. Robert Ware, who is an emergency physician and also a pioneer in teaching patient safety. So he has been very distinct faculty over there to do patient safety research. And he had been in the editorial board for many medical journals, including patient safety journals. And the award is handing out to different category individuals, hospitals, and teams. So to promote, patient safety, knowledge dissemination, education stuff. So we were like I said, we were very honored and surprised to get an email and telling us about it. So we just want to share.
Congratulations to you and Rex for that award. I know
Thank you.
that you've been a very active patient advocate. So well done.
Yeah, thank you. I learned a lot from all of you too. So thank you.
Just out of interest, Yang Ling, could you share all of the organizations or groups that you participate in with regard to patient safety?
Yeah, well, I'm a commissioner. This is what we do is improve patient safety. And also I'm on the state infection advisory committee as a public members on there. And am also a member on the National HRQ Advisor Council. This is and then I have our own patient safety organization, Washington Advocate for Patient Safety. We collaborate with Washington Patient Safety Coalition, Washington State Patient Coalition, serving on their executive committee, to collaborate on lots of patient educations and improve diagnostic error, and also speak up about medical error. So that sort of things, and also with the Patient Safety Action Network, and that's just a large group of patient safety organizations and individuals, and including providers that we promote patient safety, infection preventions. So that's the type of things I do. I do all these things volunteer, except the commission generally to pay my work to do here, and then the HRQ also pays my some time. But all rest of my work I volunteer, and I am really humbled to see how the field of patient safety have changed quite a bit since early on that time when my dad died of medical error, and I really see the light through the tunnel, see everyone work together. So yeah, thank you for opportunity. Let me say something, John.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for your activities with regard to patient safety. Well done.
Thank you.
Claire.
I want to thank Yan Ling for her voice in CMT, which is where we normally hear it. We actually, your name came up yesterday as we were talking about, or this last week as we were talking about CMT and you very frequently bring up ideas that we other commission members have not thought of. So your distinctive voice has been very, very helpful. And now I understand why you're such a good advocate for patient safety. You have a great background in it. So I want to thank you for all the work you have done to make medicine safer in this state. So thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Clara. And I'm humbled for your words. So I hope I keep it up, you know, the expectation. So yeah, thank you very much.
I would agree with Clara. I think it's really great, all your ability to speak up when it needs to be spoken. We really appreciate everything you've done in this commission for the past 8 years. Thank you so much for your help with everything.
Yeah, thank you, Alden. I have learned a lot from you. You know, I came on the board with some lenses, and then over years, and I have learned and opened up my eye to see everyone's work and to see how commission work. So I appreciate the opportunity to serve the public. So thank you.
Claire?
John, I just wanted to make people aware on the commission that something that came up this last week too is we've asked, the executive committee has asked Melanie to look into UpToDate and providing that for the commissioners who are reviewing cases. Those of us who do clinical work in large organizations have access to this. It does cost something to bring it in for an organization, and Melanie's going to scope that out for us as far as what would be the cost. But I think in reviewing cases, it's very important and valuable resource to have for commissioners. And there's a different resource that has been available for commissioners, but I don't think it's used as frequently or as easily as UpToDate. So I just wanted to make commissioners aware of that I've asked her to research the costs that this would be to the commission. Especially since we're saving so much money by not traveling.
I would just like to add that Melanie's doing research on UpToDate as well as other potential resources. So we'll wait to hear her report. Jim Anderson.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. I'm really appreciative of that. Those kind of tools would be really helpful. You know, one tool that's available to us all now, which I mean, I don't know, it's personal preference, but Dynamed is actually more up to date than UpToDate is. And you know, some people, I mean, people love UpToDate, so that's fine if that's what people want to use. That's excellent. But Dynamed is already available to all of us through our license money and via the HEAL program. So UpToDate is not, but just a thought. But whatever the case is, I really appreciate hearing about that, and thanks, Melanie, for your great work on that.
I'm sorry, Jim, I didn't catch the name of the resource you use.
Dynamed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there additional member reports? Again, I can't see everyone, so just speak up if you have a comment to make. I'll assume silence means we are done with member reports. We can move on to staff reports. The written reports were found on page 51 to 59. Are there additions, additional comments, edits, other information that has developed since the written report has gone out? Micah.
Sure. So as you're all aware, the legislative session is rapidly coming to a close. I believe today is opposite House fiscal cutoff, if I'm remembering correctly. And what that means is Stephanie and myself are breathing huge sighs of relief because the pain is almost over. But so far, this legislative session, from a policy standpoint and from a fiscal standpoint, the Medical Commission seems to be unimpacted. the budget came out and we had no significant involvement in that. And then policy-wise, there was only one bill that really impacted you, and that was the board and commission capacities bill. Something did happen with that bill that I wanted to bring your attention to, not directly impacting the medical commission, but just making you aware. So in other regulatory boards, specifically pharmacy and nursing, they have specific statutory language about their executive director and the qualifications that they must possess by law in order to serve as executive director on those commissions. That language was stripped out in a striker amendment by Chair Cody. So instead of, for say, nursing, for example, they had to be a registered nurse, they had to have a master's degree, they had to have been in clinical practice in the last 2 years, and they had to have 8 years at least of clinical practice experience, ranging from floor nursing to charge nursing and that sort of thing. All of that was gone, and they just are now required to have a master's degree. And so with the pharmacy side, they were required to be a pharmacist. All of that is now gone, and I believe, and the bill passed rather contentiously out of the House. So there will need to be a reconciliation between the House version and the Senate version. But my suspicion is that you are going to see that language stay and those changes made. So they'll be more uniform with respect to executive director employment with, say, what you have as far as the medical commission, as well as the other 11 boards and commissions that regulate health professions. So other than that, not too much is changing, but just wanted you to be aware that legislative session doesn't seem to have negatively impacted the commission at all.
That's welcome news. Additional staff reports?
This is Amelia. I just have an ask. As you know, we will have 3 public member vacancies this summer. So if you know anyone that doesn't work as an MD, PA, or any other health profession that would be interested in working with us, please have them reach out to me and I can help them with applying to be on the commission. It is the hardest positions to fill are the public member, because it is difficult to get the word out to just regular Joes. So I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, Amelia, would you be able to send like the link that has the information and where they go to apply? When I was applying, it was really, really hard to find the information.
Sure, I can do that.
I mean, I can find it now, but it would just be easier. That way I can like forward it on to folks. That'd be awesome.
Sure, I can do that. Thank you.
Any other comments from staff? Okay, we'll move on to the AAG report, which I like to call the Heather report. Heather, do you have something to advise us on?
I don't really have anything to report today. I just, there are so many new people. I wanted to introduce myself a little bit. So my name's Heather Carter. I'm an assistant attorney general. I'm assigned to be the legal advisor to the medical commission. And so I don't do your disciplinary cases, but I help with everything else, really, rulemaking, all the policies. So you'll see me at the meetings, and just wanted to say hello.
Heather keeps us on the straight and narrow all the time, so thank you very much, Heather. So anything else for the good of the order? Wide open for comments from anyone? We have approached the end of the agenda. Hearing none, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, nice.